Welcome to Digital Dilemmas, the podcast where we unravel the complex web of social media and our online presence. I'm your host, Robert Biehn, and in each episode, we bring on a special guest who shares their unique perspective on our digital world today. But we don't even stop there. We also discuss practical steps and innovate ideas to create a better, safer, and more positive digital landscape for everyone. Until next time, stay safe, stay informed, stay positive, and let's work together to create a better digital future. This has been Digital Dilemmas. Jeff, share about one of the favorite things that you've ever done as far as it could be a project, it could be a campaign. Share something that you loved that you did in any of your previous work.
To be honest, I've been really fortunate in my life that I've done a lot. By design. I've really, maybe I can answer that question in this way. The only thing I don't like doing is nothing. I just, like, people always say, well, what do you like to do? I do everything. I like everything from playing my drums to sports to camping and fishing, all the way to just saddling up to the bar with a mate and having a few pints and chatting. Like, I just like doing things. Now, as far as my career goes, nothing compares to the Laughing Otter, which I'm doing now, because I get to create this business, and it's a vehicle of just making people happy, helping kids, improving mental health, and never have I been more excited about anything in my career as
So why
I
did you
am of what
start the
I'm doing
Laughing
now.
Otter? Like what inspired that moment to where you're like, yeah, I'm gonna start this unique the Laughing Otter? What inspired that?
Okay, well, there were really four catalysts that all came together. One, the birth of my son, which happened about 4 or 5 years before I started the Laughing Otter. I always had a soft spot for kids, but over by becoming a dad, I started also having a real empathy for parents
Mm.
and parents, not in, not to be over dramatic, but I started really feeling for people who are in situations where if their kids were crying, they had no help. Like, when my son is sick, or we're a little worried about him, we got seven of the best hospitals in the world within a 10-minute drive. I can't imagine the hell it must be for other parents who don't have that option. And
Mm.
the only reason your child stops crying is because they're too tired, because they can't cry no more, so they can't cry no more. That really kind of started triggering in my head a desire to really make a difference in the world, and to help people in general, which has always kind of really been there for me. So that was one factor.
Just seeing that deep need of there's this problem, which is kind of this isolation
Yeah,
that a lot of parents have, isolated from tools and resources and even locations, as you mentioned.
yeah,
And so then you said, okay, I have empathy for that, and that really sucks. You also wanted to take a step further and say, what can I do? What can I do
yeah.
to at least help where you can help, right?
Yeah, so that was one of the catalysts. The second catalyst was, sadly, a friend of mine hung himself, and when he did that, within my social network, we started, people opened up a little bit, and I looked around, and then just a realization that, shit, nobody's doing that well. Like, there's just
Mm.
the last 10 years have
That was
just been.
powerful. Nobody's doing that well, which social
Yeah.
media would have you believe a very different story.
That's a big factor. The last 10, 15 years has been absolutely hell on everybody. We're going into another US election. Now, it's not, this
The
is not
whole
a,
world.
yeah, yeah, and the whole world's going into elections. And this isn't a political statement. It is just a fact. The polarizing conversations have have gone to a point that people are just hating each other if they have a conflicting view. And that all just kind of laid on that. And then we've had some really big issues that I guess all through history, we always have these issues. But now with social media, 24/7 news, like you just don't escape it. It used to be for a half an hour at 6 o'clock, my dad would watch the news and that would be the extent of it. And then he'd get on with his life. Now it just does not stop. And
So you feel that like the instant access to an endless amount of news, and again, unverified news, because you can't, I mean, it's almost impossible to verify something's authenticity anymore.
yeah,
Wall Street Journal and all of them have been getting busted lately with, oh, they let AI do something and there was no proofreader. And then I mean, there are stories I cannot remember where it was, but there was a story in the US about a tragic shooting that never happened. And the
yeah,
actual sheriff, I believe it was the sheriff or the mayor or someone like that, prominent figure of the community, had to come out and say, this never happened. Like this thing that you said happened in our town didn't happen. And I'm just like, to be honest, that's got to be one of the most wild things that there were people
yeah.
like starting GoFundMe's for a casualty that never happened.
It's crazy. And one of the, again, it's on both sides of the aisle. Doesn't if you're left, right, conservative, progressive, doesn't matter. What you watch in the news now, it's not just the delivering of facts. It's all opinions. It's talking heads giving their view of the world. And um, everybody has an opinion, but that's not what you need to see every minute of every day. And it just social media, which we're going to get talking about, I'm sure here, is it's not helping. So all of that happened. All the major issues that happened over that were really polarizing. Then you layer COVID on top. So I looked around and went, somebody needs to start addressing the fact that we all need to just be having a lot more fun. I even look at kids now and I go, do you guys ever just have fun like we used to? I went to an event here in Melbourne at one of the prominent high schools
Yeah.
that you have to have really high grades to get in, and it's really prestigious to go there. So I went to this event, and they all did these business pitches, and I watched it, and I'm like, geez, these are really good. And then about 10 minutes later, I'm like, these are really good. They're too damn good. And then during the break, I started talking to the kids and going, and I started asking them. There was at least 15 of the kids, and I'll paraphrase this because I'm kind of bad, and I'm not one that should be invited to these things because I don't just I don't I read between the lines.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I started asking them, like about their lives and stuff, and I just asked them that because these presentations were very, very, very well done. And I said, would you guys ever have any fun? And at least 15 of the kids, just I'll paraphrase them all together, said some version of, you have no idea the pressure we're under
Mm.
from the school, our parents. We don't have fun. We don't do anything but school. And I
You know
went,
it's crazy about when you say that, and then I know Laughing Otter comes into all of this, but it's
yeah,
just we look at kids on social media and we see someone sitting on their phone. And I'll be transparent. I won't speak for you. I'll be transparent. I'm usually quick to judge. I'm usually like,
yeah,
look at this person absorbed in their phone. But here's the thing. When someone's actually addicted to something, the need for judgment is useless in that case because they're already gone. And instead, we have to look at it from a different perspective, which, and this is my opinion, obviously, but like the UK recently did a survey, and it was like 49% of kids admitted to having an addiction to social media. Now, again, those weren't clinical, but I'll tell you what, if you believe you're addicted to something, you probably are addicted to something. Um,
yeah.
and spending 4, 5, 6 hours a day on social media, is it that they're lazy? Is it that they don't want anything more in life? Or is it that this is, remember you said you have no idea the pressure. That's what those kids said that we are
Yeah,
under. What if that same pressure is being applied to the kids, which we know from Facebook's lawsuits, from TikTok's lawsuits, that there is a level of intentional addiction that these companies are trying to do. And so maybe that same pressure of addiction is being pushed on these kids to be addicted to these social media platforms.
yeah. Well, yes, they are. Like there's no mystery there. There are like
But
it's
you know what I'm saying. You hear
yeah,
people who just are so quick to judge. Look at that
yeah,
14-year-old girl and she's on her phone for 6 hours a day. And I go, but listen, when everyone around her tells her that's where she belongs, is on her phone, that's
yeah,
where happiness and joy exist is on her phone. Are you
yeah.
really mad at her when because what? She's susceptible? Of course she's susceptible. She's
Yeah,
14.
I read a study, and this isn't a bullshit study. It was one of the Boston schools. It was Harvard or
Sure.
MIT or one of
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah.
So a legitimate scientific study, and the endorphin rush and addiction, like the addictive powers of likes on a post, is equivalent to that of cocaine. And it's like the platforms are designed.
Oh, I found out what you're saying. Dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin,
Yeah,
um, neurotransmitters with pleasure and happiness because it's like
yeah,
they're receiving a reward for good behavior.
yeah. That's right. And it was as addicting as very addictive drugs.
That's
Um,
wild.
and, and yeah, and they were also uh like these web like we I spend a lot of time online with websites and stuff like that. There are tricks that people do of where you place buttons, what colors you A/B test the crap out of things. Like these big social media platforms are very good at it. Just in the same vein as if you walk into a casino, there's a reason why.
Oh man, the science and like
Yeah,
the
yeah, it's just
psychology of casinos is wild when you start to unpack it.
yeah, absolutely. Like, and I used to, for a very short period of time, I had an online casino. I actually got out of it very quickly because it's just not a world I wanted to live in.
Hmm.
Um, and my business partner at the time, we made a joke once, and it kind of actually killed the business. I made a joke on, oh, we'll be successful when we're we're taking formula from babies. And then we both looked at each other and went, but that's exactly what we're going to be doing because there are tricks in the algorithms. We know what we're doing here. And within a month after that comment, it was kind of like, it's not, this is not a place I want to play.
Man, I'm
And
glad you had that because now we have going back to the laughing otter. So we're talking about
yeah,
one you
yeah,
saw just parents in particular, but now we're also talking about just these addictive behaviors. And the thing is that there's nothing wrong with rewarding good behavior, right? You get a reward for going to work and working. That's your paycheck, right? That is,
yeah,
you get money for that. That's a good thing. It's good to work and be rewarded for your work. But what are we rewarding these kids with? Now, it sounds like with the laughing otter, you're looking to reward them with something that actually brings joy,
yeah, absolutely.
right?
And giving people an alternative to the negative stuff. Like instead of reading an article on another thing that you know makes you angry, that you read an article about, well, like one of my favorites that was uh, it's probably been was on the site about a year ago, was a man in New York starts a music studio for homeless kids. Those are the kind of stories I want to read and feel good about. So that component of the laughing otter. Then the other triggers were on a more of a personal level, or I guess as personal level. It was like I turned 50 and went, I need to do the last third of my career has to be about something more
Mm.
than just making money
Hmm.
for myself and people I don't even like.
Yeah.
Um, and
Welcome to so many people, right? Like
yeah,
we look at
and
what are we doing? Why are we doing this?
yeah, and part of that was the last company I worked for. It was truth and integrity was just let's say it was just a suggestion. There were times sitting,
Just a suggestion.
yeah.
That's
So
so bad.
yeah, I'm trying to be politically
I
correct
I
here.
know you are. You're trying not to
Not,
get
uh,
suicided.
yeah, yeah. So, but there's times like and many times through my career, sitting in boardrooms and with people of all levels, senior level, and all you want to do is just go time out. Does everybody in this room know we're full of crap? It is so obvious we are reading from a script. We all
You have like a crap meter, and it just once it gets certain point, you're like, no, we got to stop. There's just too much crap in this
like
room now.
yeah, and it's like I know you're lying, you know you're lying, we all know you're lying. We know that and you can write this script like it's like you're gonna use some cliche term that you've read in some magazine. You're here for God knows what reason. And if one more person uses a buzzword, I'm going to drown them in the fruit platter. Like that's just like, and this is what we went to school for. This is why we work so
Yeah.
hard. Like, what is the reasoning for this? So I just went, I got to do something different. And the Laughing Otter is just, it's just giving me that
So where
that
does it
vehicle.
fit in kind of the digital landscape that we're seeing now? We have really addictive, um, corrupt, intentionally corrupt social media companies, and they're all like this. The big ones, I should say. I don't know enough about the small ones, but the big dogs, they are all the same. Um, and there's only a couple people running them anyway, at the heads, I should say. Where does the Laughing Otter kind of fit into that digital landscape? Like, are you trying
um,
to be a disruptor? Are you trying to be an alternative? What are you trying to accomplish with the Laughing Otter?
I've never thought of it in those terms. All I want to do is create a, I want to, the goal, the vision of the Laughing Otter is to be a global entertainment brand that focuses on positive and fun experiences without getting too far off mainstream. I just like really just fun for everyone, kind of where Disney used to be maybe 30 years ago.
Mm.
Uh, like when I was growing up, Disney was synonymous with this wholesome, fun entertainment without having any sort of ulterior um,
Do you think they
motive or
stopped
agenda.
because of the type of people that were running the show, or do you think they stopped because they felt there wasn't a market for it anymore? What do you think?
Oh, I think they're just huge now. They're just a multinational conglomerate. I got nothing. Like I think Disney actually still is pretty much synonymous with having fun, fantasy. Good. It's just their finger in a lot of pies. So, but I still think that they're like as far as great big corporations. I think Disney actually does really well with staying in within that
Do you
delivering of a
think,
positive message and
because I'm very
uh,
curious about, what you think about this. Disney is failing really hard at their releases. Their releases are just doing terrible. Um, do you think there's any play here? There's everyone always screams woke, and I do believe that there is a big problem with woke, but that doesn't always mean that that's why, just because something failed, right, doesn't mean it was because there was a woke agenda, right? And we hear that a lot now, and I think this just kind of a token term now. But
yeah,
with the need of more positive, right, more happy, more fun
yeah.
material out there, I think you're right, because I think Mr. Beast is a prime example of someone who is succeeding. I think generally almost everything he posts is positive, fun, but do you think that Disney's failing because there is a woke agenda that they're putting into this, so they're not as safe for fun and enjoyment as maybe someone would want?
No, I don't. I think one. I think that whole woke agenda has just become a buzzword that people have forgotten where the original, what the original meaning of woke actually is, which is um, they wake up to oppression, which I completely agree with. But that aside, no, I think I think that Disney is a great big corporation that just needs to adjust.
So they're finding
Like,
their footing, is what you're saying. They're going to go through this period of some
yeah,
failures and figuring out what's working, what's not working, and they're
and
going to just adjust through it and find their place.
yeah, and that's like, I think sports sports needs to do that. Like, there's people are consuming content completely different than they used to. And the but we're holding an event uh later in the year where we're bringing 16 of the biggest content creators together to play guitar in 5 days of guitar challenges.
That's going to be so much
uh
fun. I can't
yeah,
wait.
yeah, yeah. No, it is going to be awesome. But it's because like people are consuming, and fans, like they have relationships with creators that are like you mentioned, Mr. Beast. That's completely different than people have with movie stars and sports athletes
So what do you think
and
the social media, I love that you said relationships, right? So what do you think the future of social media slash social media content is going to look like?
I don't know, but I think, sadly, I still think that there's going to be a space for pretty low level content that just insults intelligence. That
Do you mean like a lot
uh,
of the stuff that's out there now that's just clickbait? There's no real
yeah,
sustenance behind it. There's no
yeah,
point. You watch it and you go, why does that even exist?
yes, and I think that that's still going to exist, but
It kind of
we're
reminds you of the content you see where two obviously not uh people who are not married together go, "Oh, I just caught my boyfriend or my husband cheating on me." And it's so obvious how staged it is. It's so
yeah,
obvious that they don't even know each other. They're like actors or friends doing, and then at the end of it, you also just question why that was ever made to begin with. Why?
yeah,
What made you want to wake up and make a piece of crap content like that? Like I remember one time I had a buddy who he did placements for influencers and he shared a job posting. He's like, "Hey man, if you know anybody who fits this job posting." So I read it, and the job posting was to hire a young couple. It didn't have to actually be a couple, just could pretend to be a couple. It was like 100K a year, and their job would be to just make random videos like what I told you, where they would just fake drama and try to pass it off as real. And that would be their job. It was literally like 20, 30 hours a week to get good content, right? Because you're going to make a bunch of content that sucks. Um, and that's just wild to me that someone was like, I'm going to pay a lot of money to make terrible content.
yeah, and
Like,
like,
what?
yeah, well, it's not, that isn't, there's that isn't unique to social media or
It's
like
true. You're right. You're
online.
right.
Like
Social just
when
makes it more accessible.
I'm a pretty simple guy, but it's been a long time since I watched a TV program that held my attention more than an episode or two. It's just the same tried and true formula that you just go, and and there's and a lot of it, and a lot of the social, or not like a lot of the reality shows are pretty ordinary in what the messaging that they give people, like the whole survivor, uh like, you win by being dishonest. That's a pretty horrible message to be giving
Have you seen the new Squid
people.
Game reality show?
I've heard about it, but
Oh,
I won't
I don't
watch it.
know which is worse. The written scripted one with actors that are
Uh,
killing each other to win money, or the one where it's real people who I borderline think might kill each other if that was part of the requirement to win
oh,
the money.
they would for sure.
It
It's
was so I actually I had to, my wife and I were watching this, and two reasons we had to stop watching it. One is I realized that I was becoming very negative. I was watching this and I was becoming nasty myself because I was so disgusted by the people that I was becoming disgusting myself, how I talked about them, how I viewed them. And then the second part is it was just so how they talked and acted was so similar to the scripted one that I'm like, man, would these people do it if a life was on the line. And I started to kind of feel like they might.
Oh, they would for sure.
And that just me not wanting to be an icky person, right? Just who's filled with negative thoughts about others, because that's not healthy. And then two, me just not wanting to see this play out because of how similar it all was to a scripted a scripted show about basically people murdering, right? Complicit murder
Mhm.
one another to make money. I was
Yeah,
like, no,
no,
I'm out of here. I can't do this.
yeah, I have to leave the room. I don't. Um, yeah, I can't watch that stuff. And again, that's where the Laughing Otter fits in, is trying to give people an alternative, because I do believe that there's a big enough market for people like you and I who want to be entertained but don't want to be insulted, and don't I don't want to celebrate the bad in humanity. I want to celebrate the good in
Well
humanity.
put, man. You don't want to
So
celebrate the bad in humanity. And when we make and watch shows like that, we are praising that idea, which is people are terrible, let's celebrate it. People are terrible, let's monetize it. People, man, well said. Like I definitely would agree with you, is that we just don't want to celebrate the bad. We're not saying don't have fun. We're not saying don't make entertaining things. We're saying don't do things that essentially exploit the darkness of humanity and then idolize it.
yeah, we do that. We do that in the business world. Like the other day, there was some posts on LinkedIn that just and you can probably guess who the people were, but there are founders of some pretty big companies that are just not good people, and their businesses were built on exploiting exploiting workers, tax evasion, and all like and dishonest practices all the way through, and yet people worship them. Like, why? Like, we shouldn't be applauding these people.
Yeah.
We should be denouncing them and celebrating people who are honest business people, because anyone can make money if you're willing to be dishonest.
So I think
It's
I agree with you, but here's the tough part, all right? Because I think I agree with you. What do you do when you're just an average Joe? Okay? So you have no ambitions to become a political figure. You're not a big spender, so you can't move the needle with money. You're just, you're just your average person. And you work all day and you get off work and you want to turn on something entertaining. Are you telling, and I'm genuinely asking because I think this is a fair question, are you saying that those people should choose not to, let's say, watch the new Squid Games, right? Netflix is going to come after me now. Not
Yeah,
watch the new Squid Games reality show because it absolutely frames and exploits the darkness of humanity and idolizes it and monetizes it. What are you telling the average Joe to do? What are you saying they should do to kind of take a stand, to give a middle finger to those founders, to say Netflix, this is crap, but it's all crap, right? Well, not
yeah.
all of it, but you know what I'm saying, the majority of it. And so
It's
what did they do?
Well, I there's one of my favorite quotes that I remind myself of all the time. It's been paraphrased. It gets attributed to Mahatma Gandhi, but it's been paraphrased and it's been shuffled around. But whether he actually said it in this way or not, I still like the quote, and it's,
Sure.
"Be the change you want to see in the world."
Mm,
That's it. If you don't want people to be shitty to each other, then don't celebrate it. Don't support it. I'm like I like I I'm not I, and I'm not I don't want to come off as holier than thou. Like, there's things I do I know are hypocritical, but I try not. But I'm at least I'm aware of it. But I try not to be a hypocrite. But I think we can all agree that child labor is a pretty horrible thing, but yet I will go into a big box store and
Apple.
buy,
They got busted a
yeah,
few times.
yeah, but even like I'll go into a big box store and buy um a broom for $4, knowing full well that it's just about impossible to get that broom for
Paying someone a reasonable
uh,
wage.
that's right.
Right.
And so, but then there's others, like there's a very famous, uh, started as an online bookstore company that I refuse to use. I will not order anything off of their
So you're kind of saying choose your battles type of thing?
Yeah, I think I
Because I
think
mean, we can't operate with 100 as much as I would even prefer that. We can't operate with 100% morality. Corruption and deceit is woven into every single thing that exists. I mean,
yeah,
I have a house, and I'm sure some piece of my house was made in unethical ways from unethical sources or means. It just has to be. I mean, it just can't not be.
that choose your battles, but there's battles that are relatively easy. Yeah, just be the change you want to be in the world.
Don't
Be
watch the
good and
show then. Find something else or just don't watch it.
yeah, just don't watch it. Like, cause like that's something I for sure do. Like I leave the room when there's certain shows on, or I just I won't
Be
like
a part of it. Yeah.
yeah, I won't be a part of it. Yeah, like it's just you choose your battles and find what makes sense to you
So
more.
obviously
And
you're
like
trying to be the change with the laughing otter. You're
yeah,
taking your
absolutely.
skill set, your background, and you're
Yeah,
saying, I want to actually be part of that change, which I love. So let's play a hypothetical because I always enjoy this.
yeah,
Let's say that you had all the clearance you needed to, and you had the biggest social media company in the world, right? And again, no
yeah.
opposition, no problem with money, and you could change one thing about social media, um, your social media platform, the biggest in the world, everyone's on it. What would you change to make social media
Okay.
better?
All right. Just to clarify though, like the laughing otter is not going down the social media path. Like
I
that's
know.
that.
Yeah. I think social media, like how things are distributed, where people are communicating.
Okay. If I could do one, I'd love to see a lot more founders get sued when they shame people.
Can you give me an
Well,
example?
it's very
Even if it's
popular.
hypothetical.
Yeah, no, okay. Well, like, there's very like I know on YouTube you see it, like a very popular is videoing people at Walmart who are wearing clothes that maybe they shouldn't be wearing or like and are just kind of making fun of
Oh,
them. I would like to see some of those people in those videos go and sue the shit out of the platform that's shaming them.
not the people
Eh,
that's shaming them, though.
both. Like I like there's just got to
So you
be
think there's a
more.
level of responsibility on both sides? The party that's exploiting
Uh,
them, that went into Walmart knowing full well they would find someone without permission
uh, yeah,
and
yeah,
and do that, because
absolutely.
I think that's a really fair case in point, right? You see people, you see especially a younger crowd, they'll go to colleges and they'll ask questions that the average person wouldn't know off the top of their head anyway.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
only reason the person asking the question knows it is because they prepared for it. And they'll frame it as if those people are idiots because
yeah,
they didn't know who the 13th president of the United States was off the top of their head when they're on their way walking to class and someone runs up to them and says, and then they'll clip it and go, look how dumb all these people are.
yeah.
And it's like, listen, if someone runs up to me while I'm thinking about something else, you could ask me the most simple question and I might mess it all up because I'm just like not prepared and I'm frazzled.
Just because somebody's not famous, you should not be allowed to make money off of somebody's likeness without their permission. Like I like good
And
or
that's why
like
they go to
really.
those public spaces, is because then they can turn around and say, well, you're in a public space. You've willingly subjected yourself to be exploited, but it's so hard because it's like, what
But
choice did they have?
yeah,
Are
I
you
even
telling them
get
don't go outside?
and like I'll go back to that Walmart example. Like and I don't like every once in a while, like it'll just somebody will send it to me or something, and I'll just get caught watching it for a few seconds.
Yeah,
It's
I
not something.
understand. Listen,
It,
I understand.
yeah, like I can't stand that kind of stuff. So, but you'll see videos and it'll be, oh, look at this idiot, the way they're dressed up. And anybody with half a brain will go, well, actually, you can tell like they're going to a costume party or it's Halloween or there's some reason why that person is dressed up silly. Australians where I live now is like people love dressing up for everything, like in funny costumes. They go to when they go to rock concerts, they dress up. When they go to sporting events, they dress up like. So you can tell that this person purposely dressed like that, and now you're shaming them. I want to see those people being able to go after the people who've shamed them. I don't like
So
this.
let me ask you this, because as someone who, believes in building an alternative to the platforms and is building an alternative to the platforms that currently exist for social media,
uh,
monitoring content is just an impossible challenge because at least the way AI is right now, it can't watch that video and distinguish yet whether someone's being shamed or not, whether there's lack of framing and context, right? So, would you think that maybe a solution might be that people could vote on this type of content and then see, because that doesn't make sense. It's like Caesar sitting at the column, and everybody in the audience
uh,
and spare their life, because that can be exploited too. Like, how do we actually try to fix this problem? Because I agree with you, it's a problem, but how is a platform, even though I don't like Facebook, how is Facebook supposed to monitor that?
um, well, there's where I think there's a couple things. I don't think it's possible to monitor it at the like you said. I think it's too much. I don't think a voting or anything like that will work because people are doing that essentially with likes now anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
Uh, yeah, so that's not going to work. I just think there just needs to be legislation put into place that
So more of a
just
reactive thing. So
yeah,
those
like
people, they post the video, and then one way or another, it gets reported to an authority, right? And then they go, okay, Facebook, we need to know who this person is that did this, and you need to
that's right.
enforce it. So in other words, you're just saying Facebook needs to be, and again, I know you're not saying literally Facebook, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but to
Yeah,
paraphrase, Facebook needs to turn around and work with authorities to
that's right. Just
uphold a legislation.
right, and and there's two components of this. One, I can't go into your um, well, you're working for yourself in your house, so it's probably not a good
It's
example.
okay.
But um, I can't go into an office building with a bullhorn and and start, Mary here, a stupid drug addict and beats her kids and like whatever I want to say. I
Right.
can't go and do that because I'll be arrested. I'll be like I can't
Fined,
take
banned. I mean, you'll have
yeah,
layers of
yeah, I can't.
repercussions.
Yeah, I can't take out a billboard and put it on the highway and defame you. But there is nothing in place right now where I could say whatever the heck I wanted about you and put it on social media and let it go rampant. And there's no ramifications for that until maybe you get to the point where you're talking about somebody who's famous or something. But I can do that to my neighbor. I can do it to you. I can do it to anybody, and there's no ramifications. I can take photos of a stranger, like you said, mix it, and all of a sudden it goes viral. So there needs to be laws in place where I can, or the defamation and libel laws need to move to social media in more sense.
Mhm.
But the responsibility of the platform owners, I think, has to be in the same vein as there's as much as most people won't admit this, but the banks are actually really, really good at um, at working with authorities when it comes to things like money laundering, uh, uh, like just uncovering criminal behavior.
And
Banks have,
you think that the platforms could do better to work with.
yeah, like
Now, do you worry about free speech, right? That's one of the biggest concerns. Like, we found out that Twitter absolutely, and I won't get into the right and left, I don't want to get into that, but they
no,
absolutely were found that they were censoring a particular political party. It was all released. Some of them got fined and in trouble for it. But some of it was at the behest of the White House. The White House explicitly told Twitter to do certain things. So, like, do you worry that then now the government will essentially own all of these platforms that are meant to be a place where people can voice opposing opinions, including opposing opinions to governments.
I don't I don't think it needs to be. I think the legislation has to be just more broad. That it's not really a, a censorship thing. It's
Okay.
more
Accountability.
accountability. Like if it's I'm not talking in yeah, mine is more like where I'm really think the biggest problem is it isn't that's free speech side of things. It is the untruths. And
Okay.
if
Because my one
eh,
of my fears, because I'm a like I am a big advocate for accountability. I really am.
yeah,
Government, political, individual. I think at every layer and every place in our lives, there should be accountability for everyone. Because if you make a decision, it never just impacts you. It does always impact others, good
yeah,
or bad. But the fear I have or genuine concern is like, one of the articles I was reading from the New York Times the other day was that a TikTok star over in Indonesia, Lena, I don't know how to say her last name, Lena, and anybody who knows what's going on, they know this. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison because she ate pork rinds on her TikTok. And in Indonesia, it was particularly there was Muslim clerics, and that's against it. And I go, should TikTok have helped to protect her? Should TikTok have advocated for her right? Or because the government and government officials there said, no, we don't believe it. At what point is TikTok now an oppressor? Because I think we both can agree that if a girl wants to go onto TikTok, regardless of religion of the country, that she should have the right to go onto TikTok and eat pork rinds.
yeah. That I think that's a
Because
different
that's my fear is what I'm saying. I agree
yeah,
with you
yeah.
with accountability, but I'm afraid that it's going to become a tool of oppression for governments. It's already oppressing people, right? It's already manipulating and addicting people. Now we add the government into the mix. Oh God, like
There's definitely there's definitely guardrails that need to be put into place, but I think where I land all the time with these kind of free speech and rights and stuff like that. Let's fix the obvious first, and then let's talk about the fringes.
okay. All right. So you're
Le-
saying, listen, yes, there's a problem with what I just discussed with Lena,
yeah,
but because that's so extreme and it's probably not happening, or if it is happening every day, I'm not aware of it yet. But more of
uh,
something else is happening that we are consciously aware of, which is this manipulation of the average
yeah,
person.
that's right. And people being shamed, people being defamed, untruths, people peddling lies. That like all of these things are very obvious. They happen all the time. It's much in the same. Like I'll use this example just popped in my head. If we think in terms of, I think most people will agree that um, drinking and driving is a bad thing. Like
Right.
you
Yeah.
really you shouldn't be pounding back. But but then somebody could argue, what if I'm over the limit? My son fell down, cut himself, and the only way to save his life is I got to throw him in the car and get him to the hospital. That
That's a different
when I
debate. Right.
yeah, yeah, but it's the friend, and a lot of times I hear people say, "Oh, well, we need like free speech has to be absolute." No, it can't be. Just
Right.
like
It's kind of like I know someone who doesn't wear a seatbelt because they read in one story one time that
yeah,
someone had a seatbelt on and a car accident happened, and the
yeah,
seatbelt got so mangled and wrapped up around them that the rescue survivors, or not the
yeah,
firemen, but the people bystanders were
yeah,
there and couldn't get them out of the car because nobody had a cutting tool. It's like,
yeah,
okay, we understand that there's this really extreme potential outcome, but
yeah,
almost always seatbelts will do prevent
yeah,
more damage than
and
cause more damage. Not to
right,
say that they won't have problems. On average, they're going to be doing more good than harm.
yeah, and
Okay.
but and this may be an example of what I'm talking about as well. Is that I've heard that story too, but I'm not sure that it isn't an urban myth. and it's one of these
Mm, those
like
folk stories.
yeah, and so but there's a lot of folk stories that um, are doing a lot of damage in the world too, and so that accountability to whether or not you're peddling facts needs to be addressed, and so
So what do you think
the
about this? I've been toying with this idea for a while, and I on one of the other shows that I've done on digital dilemmas, we had Brandy Vargas on here, and she was talking about having authenticated material so a way to authenticate where a source of content comes from. It's almost impossible the way that things work now because none of the social media platforms are transparent, none of them. And
yeah
then nobody actually has a ledger, if you will, of where content came from. So enforcement of content and repercussions for content is almost impossible unless you're super big, right? Unless you're Mr. Beast or Kim Kardashian or, these big ones where it's very clearly their account. And so closing their account would be a problem. But a lot of other accounts are made purely for advertising, right? To get views, to get ad dollars. There's no real one person behind them. But authenticating content to where you could turn around and Jeff, you turn around and you have a source of where you post your content and it creates a digital record. And then if I saw you on YouTube and I saw this piece of content, I could trace it back by taking just the link, the YouTube link, putting it in, and then saying, oh, this is not verified content from Jeff.
yeah that's it's needed, but man, it'd be tough, like because
Because you'd have to
the
get everybody to go into a database, basically.
right, and yeah, it's almost a blockchain type thing that is
I
needed.
believe actually it is built on blockchain so that it can't be manipulated
Yeah,
from a
so
central database.
yeah, but it's still with that. Yeah, like it definitely need because one of the biggest problem with with the internet now is you read an article and you go, "Ah, that can't be true," and so then you Google, more information on that article, and you'll find 300 articles that are essentially the same article,
Yeah. Oh,
but
it's so bad.
you never but and then people go,
Reproductions.
yeah, and everybody goes, oh, like this got to be real because there's hundreds of articles written on this one thing, but then if you go all the way back to the original article was fiction. And
It reminds me
uh,
of I was sometimes I watch YouTube shorts and I was watching Joe Rogan and I enjoy Joe Rogan's podcast. It's just very entertaining. And then that means YouTube's algorithm will start sending me a bunch of Joe Rogan stuff. Well, then I started getting all this Joe Rogan stuff that was saying things so outlandish. And if you know Joe Rogan, like he's not in any short supply of saying outlandish things. But the
mhm,
things just didn't resemble his style. And you would only know that if you've watched a lot of Joe Rogan to kind of know his style. And then
yeah,
what I found out was that the AIs are getting so good at replicating his voice that now they're creating Joe Rogan podcasts that sound just, I mean, truly just like Joe Rogan. And so then it's like, oh my gosh, like I think personally, this election year in the US is going to get nasty because the
you
deep
think?
fakes that are coming will be coming out all day, every day. You think misinformation happened in the last election with the Russians? Oh, no. What's going to happen now is going to feel so real and authentic that there's people that are going to be sharing material and believing material, not because they wanted to, but because it literally seems that real. And you already know this. I know you know this. The moment someone creates the idea and makes you even believe for a second that something was real, it's hard to get it out of your mind. If I saw a video and they manipulated it, right? If you saw a video of me online and it looked just like me and it sounded just like me, and I go, man, I think that murder should be legal, right? And you'd go, that doesn't sound right, Robert, like something Robert would say, but it looks like him and it sounds like him. And then let's say you hated me. Well, now you're very likely go, actually, I could see Robert saying that because of what kind of person he is. And so you just have this like really, really, what am I trying to say? Like where like you said with the articles, the duplicating of the articles. And so you have like fake deep fakes and 300 articles all pushing this narrative that's totally false. It's hard not to believe it anyway because you're
Well,
just surrounded by it.
I think that's going to be the biggest that the just to kind of where something needs to break or change with all of all of that we've been talking about, because of the speed by which and the ease by which information can be created, and by the speed of where technology, we need to start putting in rules in place. I'll use this metaphorically, govern Silicon Valley in the same way that everything else is governed.
You mean like pulling
Like,
a fire alarm in a movie theater? You get arrested for that. You get fined for that.
yeah, yeah, but we put guard, like if you're a pharmaceutical company and you develop a new drug, or for whatever, like that cures whatever, it's a 10-15 year process before it's actually on the shelves, or even longer. I don't know exactly, know, but yet you can build AI and release it to the masses without anybody going, okay, what are the ramifications? What,
Mm,
where are the rules? Like, can you,
yeah, I
like
understand.
like we'll all agree that, um that for the most part, most people agree that cars are were an advancement to humanity. Like, you can get around, you can see people, whatever. But imagine if cars were released with no rules. You can drive them where you want to. You can drive them as fast, as slow. You don't have to stop at stop signs. You don't have to stop at red lights. You can do whatever you want with your car. But that's like, it sounds absurd, but that's exactly what we allow to happen in
Mm,
Silicon Valley. Because you get a 500x valuation on your investor money, all the rules are removed.
right,
It's so
right. You can do
we
it. Sure, free pass. Go ahead. Go do
yeah,
it because you've got lots of money and you've got lots of opinions on value.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you got hype, and there's a lot of people getting rich, and that's super cool. But nobody looks at Facebook and Amazon and and
Do you think part of that is that because our legislation, and I'm speaking for the US because I only follow really mostly the US stuff unless I get sent articles. Like
yeah,
I listened to when Congress brought Mark Zuckerberg in front, and oh my gosh, was I embarrassed. I was like, you've got these people in power who have no capability of understanding even what reality is. Like you've got these
yeah,
senators who don't even know how the internet works, who don't even know. I mean, genuinely don't understand, and they're trying to prosecute Zuckerberg, right? They're trying to catch him for things that he did. I think this was when he had that data leak that that
yeah.
that happened. And I'm listening to Congress, and they're asking the dumbest things. They're accusing him of things. There's plenty to accuse him for, but they're accusing him from things that are literally not how reality works, not actually within his power. And so, do you think part of the reason why our legislation sucks so much is because our legislators have no clue how anything works?
Yes.
Because I'm
Like,
sure
there's
it's the same in Australia. I mean, almost
it's
every government in the world, you've got legacy people, legacy politicians in power who are so disconnected from reality, right?
and they have no interest in. I'll tell you two things. Like, it's funny watching, like, the Canadian and Australian, originally from Canada. The Canadian and Australian political system is based on it's exactly the same, because it's based on the UK Parliament. If you watch what they call question period, which happens in both Canada, if you watch the two governments in Ottawa and in Canberra on TV during question period, you would think it's the same exact people, just with a little bit different accent. If you turn the sound off, they're both. We keep electing, and this isn't, again, this isn't. It doesn't matter what political party you're behind. They're all like, they're absolutely useless. They're cowards. They are self-interested. Like, this isn't a mystery. You don't get to be a senator or a congressman because you're good for humanity. You get there because you know how to be manipulative and self-interested. Like that,
Yeah,
but
because I mean, it's so, I think this goes back to what you're saying about accountability, right? And I think, quite honestly, in many ways, we need accountability top down,
uh,
absolutely. But we also need accountability to where we're going in and saying, so I just pulled it up, right? You ready
yeah,
for this? I wanted to see your raw
yeah,
reactions, okay? To
yeah,
some of the questions that Congress asked Zuckerberg. One of them was precious time. You know how this works. I'm sure you're very, very
yeah,
familiar with a lot of this stuff. There's time limits. Senators, Congress has
yeah,
time
yeah,
limits to ask questions. One
yeah.
of them said, "My son is dedicated to Instagram, so he'd want to be sure I mentioned him while I was here with you." That was his official statement to Mark Zuckerberg, was a shout out to his son. Why don't you bring some fiber optics? Because we don't have connectivity. Zuckerberg doesn't install internet. They're asking stuff. So like they don't understand like
How is
what,
like where are the aides? Where are the advisors going? It
because
blows my
they,
mind.
yeah,
It blows my mind.
Mr. Zuckerberg, hypothetically, if someone's VCR, sorry, won't stop flashing, how would you suggest they fix that? What? That's what it just like they ask these questions, and I'm like, we have real problems here, and we
Like
need to
huge.
get to the bottom of these real problems.
This is not your time to be funny.
Yeah,
Like,
and I hate to
fucking
say, but
hell.
it feels like
I'm
both
sorry.
sides are just there to put on a show when they're
Oh, it was
supposed to be serving us.
okay. So here's something that I recently was talking to a guy, um, and it's completely. I have all the reasons to believe them because of who he is, and I know him, and ex investment banker on Wall Street, and we were talking about because it was a Web3 event. We were just talking about how he was he's doing some good in the world. We were just talking about the changes that need to happen and blah blah blah. This whole idea of Facebook and what they've and other social media platforms, what they get away with in that. And he explained it to me. He goes, "This is how it works." I've spent X amount of years on in New York as an investment banker.
Yeah.
Here's how it works. Invest investment banker invests a ton of money in someone like Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Then they go to Mr. Congressman or Mrs. Congressman and a bunch of them and go, what we're going to do is we're going to create this slush fund, and we're gonna put $1 million worth of Facebook shares into this account, and we'll have a couple of layers so nobody will actually know that it's your account. So maybe you can just ignore a few things that Facebook might be doing. And so now these policymakers who are supposed to be putting guardrails in place don't do it because it's not in their financial interest. And that's not a made up thing. That is just how it works. And it's not just we're beating up on Facebook, but that's everybody, like it's
Yeah, I feel like going back to the core of this all, right? I love that
yeah,
you're out there working on an alternative.
yeah.
And I think everybody needs to remember that we are the alternative. We are the supplier of information. Not entirely, but when we're on social media, right? Or for those who are a little more tech savvy like yourself, Jeff, right? Who can create websites and blogs and things like that. We can be a source for true, honest news just by telling the truth, just by sharing a positive story, just by not contributing to the negative, especially the intentional lying that's out there. And at the same time, we can also go and hold people accountable. There is no reason why Congress should have a position of power to go and regulate over Facebook if they don't even understand how Facebook works. At one point, they
Well,
asked, well, how do you make money, Facebook, if your service is free? Do you not understand how ads work? Do you not understand like these things?
Well, what's scary about comments like that is how removed from society are you that you don't understand how Facebook? How are you making political and social and economical decisions if you're that ignorant about the world?
Yeah.
Well, like, there's a whole other discussion, but I think it's hilarious in a very sad way. You can be a congressman, a senator, the president with zero qualifications, zero licenses, zero education that's relevant, but God forbid you drive a taxi or cut someone's hair without a license. Like
Yeah.
it is absolutely asinine that there isn't a baseline level of education that you need to do and a yearly qualification. Like you should have to do basic like yeah, take at least a 3 year a 3 year BA on how to like be a politician. Maybe get some of these fools that they just there to do exist. Like they're just
Yeah.
look
They're
at
just
at bat.
cashing checks, man, year after
uh,
year after year.
the for the most part, people are dishonest, but like politicians, and this is across the world. But the ones the thing the adjective that rarely gets used, but I think is the greatest common trait, and that's they're absolute cowards. They're cowards to do what's right. Like when I try to avoid the news, but when I catch it, they talk about um, political. Like it's never a discussion about what is best for the country and the people. It's always a discussion about how do I remain in power? How do I
Yes.
how do
Right.
I how do I appeal to the base or the my like to the voters in a way that they'll continue to vote for me? But none have the courage to step up and go, actually, this might not be a popular thing to do, but in the long run, this is what needs to be done for our country. In this, in the same way that like a CEO, lots of times has to make unpopular decisions if and for the
Yep.
best of the company in the long run.
So
But
let's end it on a
uh,
positive note though.
yes,
Here's the
because that
thing.
yes,
We can
because
do this
yeah,
as much as we reasonably can. And
yep,
there's awesome people like you. So I'm going to ask you a favor, Jeff. Send me one of your favorite pieces of content from Laughing Otter. And I'm going to spotlight that and link it and encourage people not just to go search for themselves, but make it direct for them. So we can just get them to be reading and sharing and being a part of something that is part of the change. Um, and then maybe what we'll do is sometime you and I will jump on and we'll share some of your favorite highlights of the Laughing Otter, man. I think that'd be a really fun thing to do.
yeah, no, for sure. Like one of the things that I'm doing right now that I'm really I'm it's one of the reasons I love the Laughing Otter is it gives me a vehicle to help people and in just the everyday business activities. And one of the things is all of the blog posts that are on the Laughing Otter are being written by a group of people in a refugee camp in Nigeria. So it's through a company called through an organization called Step Up One, and they are trying to get what they're doing is they're upskilling 1 million refugees so that these people have a chance to get out of the refugee camps um
Love that.
and and yeah, it's awesome. And
That's amazing.
so and they're writing some really interesting, really nice blog posts. And one of them, I encourage them, well, why don't you write about yourselves? Like,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. That's a story to
yeah,
tell.
yeah. So that I'll share that one with you. That's a
I'm
great
looking
one.
forward to it. And then we can
Yeah,
just give some alternatives out there. Jeff, I always enjoy when we get to talk. We obviously get into deep stuff. We
yeah,
really we get into some of the difficult stuff that it's like, I don't know how to solve it. Let's talk about it anyway and let's figure something out. So I just can't thank you enough for what you're doing with the Laughing Otter and
Yeah.
also just taking time to hang out with me today.
No, it's been a great time, and one thing I could encourage everybody: we won't solve these big problems all in one go, but let's start solving them. Uh, just because we can't solve them in one go doesn't mean we shouldn't slowly start. Let's take the easy wins. Let's and
Yeah, do what you
let's
can, basically.
yeah,
Do what you
yeah,
can today instead of, not doing anything because it just
yeah.
feels too big.
Yeah, I have a war cry that people who work for me gets that they hear it all the time, and that is, let's just be better today than we were yesterday, and in 30 days
100%.
we'll have 30 days that we're better, and in a year
Absolutely.
we'll have 365 days that we're better. As long as we're better than we were yesterday, we're moving forward. But if we just ignore the problem because it seems too big, then we'll never get there.
That's right.
um and just and trust your own, be like, I love that, like I mentioned it, be the person you want to be in the world.
Yeah.
If you're watching a YouTube video that's shaming someone, or is racist or chauvinistic, or or uh just or hurts someone, then just don't watch it.
Right.
Just
If you don't want to be that person who's being uh tormented,
hurt.
insulted,
Yeah,
hurt in that video, if you wouldn't want to be that person, then don't be the person watching.
that's right.
Yeah, I love that.
All right.
And I agree. That's personal accountability right there.
And so, at the risk of going down another rabbit hole, I'm not going to say anything anymore. So it's always fun, Robert. I think we just keep trying, and we'll get there. This
Love it.
is 2024 is going to be a year of people trying to make you hate others. Just remember, there's no them. It's just us.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Appreciate you, Jeff.
all right, mate. Cheers.